First off, I want to thank all of you that took to Twitter to submit your questions for this weekly Q&A. This type of video would not be possible without your participation, so I thank you greatly for that and appreciate the number of questions that I get. Try to get through as many of them as I possibly can. It's fun to do so, interact with you guys. So remember, subscribe if it's your first time checking this channel out. Subscribe to it now! And keep these questions coming when I ask for them on Twitter. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Joseph Moran kicks us off by asking, how are you doing and how is summer? I'm adequate. Not great, not terrible. Wish things were better. Certainly could be a whole lot worse. So kind of like almost in like the worst possible place you could be, like right in the middle. Does that make sense? Like if you say, wow, man, things can't get much worse, that can almost be a positive because you have nowhere to go but up. But when you feel like you're kind of treading water in the middle, you know what I mean? Summer is well. We've got an appointment coming up in about another week or so with the oncologist. That's when we get to the serious part of figuring out if there's any cancer remaining anywhere within her, or if she has a clean bill of health for the time being. Fingers crossed. No noticeable pain, no noticeable problems. She's the same pain in the rear, lovey-dovey, fantastic beagle that she's always been. So thank you for asking about her, and we will see. Stay tuned. Dave G 123_456 asks the next question. How did you deal with your pets passing away? I recently lost one. I still can't get over it. Had him for 15 years, and it's like a part of you is just gone. Yeah, for those of you that may not have known me back in the early 2010s, especially back when I was doing the old Off the Rope Show channel, which is now OTR Central, where I talk about wrestling. Had the cats and had 3 of them, and all 3 of them passed away within a year. It was a major nut punch. There's no other way to put it. That sucked. That sucked really, really bad. Still kind of sucks to think about it. How do you deal with it? I don't know if I ever learned how to fully deal with it. I don't know if you ever fully deal with it. Eventually, the passage of time helps, and you think about them sometimes, and you get flooded with some of the good memories that you had. But you never truly get over it. And sometimes love is about losing. Mortality is a part of life, unfortunately. So it's worth it. It will always be worth it. But I can't say it's easy when you lose one, and can't say you ever truly get over it. I certainly have not, all these years later. NFL 1 million asks, do you think it's a good idea for the Bears to bring in Dak? I know we should draft a quarterback, but Dak has been a good QB with bad coaches around him, and he isn't a bum like Sam Darnold. Look, if the Bears were more truly positioned to be a contender, and they had the cap space, and bringing in a Dak potentially put them over the hump quickly, I could support that. But they're not, and they don't have the cap space, and they need to reset their window of competition, and bringing in Dak just complicates a lot of things, so no, I'm not in favor of it. Progress Matt, 504. What are the top policy priorities that you want President-elect Joe Biden to achieve, either pass through legislation or executive order during his first term? Number one, some COVID stimulus for folks that need the help would certainly be appreciated. And throughout the rest of whatever remains of the pandemic, I think that would be a nice thing to do. Seems like one of those so obvious things that anybody in the political sphere in Washington should get on board with it, and yet somehow magically we don't. We know why, but we don't. I think student loan forgiveness has to be there. I saw somebody put out, was it a bank or something, a really dumb, flawed study about, well, this is not going to really stimulate the economy much in relation to GDP. Well, that's not the only form of economic stimulus, you dipshits. Because if you told me, hey, once you have to start paying your student loans back again, that I could take that $500 a month and pocket it, I could get that negativity off of my credit report. That's a significant financial stimulus to me. That is a life-changing event. So I resent the notion that it would have minimal impact. It would have significant impact, and it would have significant impact for literally millions of Americans. And here's the thing: like, you can get into the philosophical economic debate about whether or not it's good business or good policy to do it, if it's good economics to do it. Like, there is a trade-off, there is a cost. I hate when the far left loons will sit there and talk about how it's free and we should just do it and it's all magic and pixie dust. No, there are trade-offs, there are costs, there are consequences. That doesn't mean that it's still not right to do it, but it is completely ridiculous to pretend like it doesn't. But with as much as we've exploded the debt over the past 4 years, and in particular in 2020, at this point in time, what's a little bit more to drive a significant stimulus? But you still have to couple that with actually reforming how higher education is funded. Something as simple as clean drinking water for Flint, Michigan. Like, some of these like really low-hanging fruits that enjoy widespread support, Medicare for all, somehow the majority of Americans actually support that, but yet somehow when we get into the political sphere of Washington, now all of a sudden we don't, because that's where the big corporate money and lobbyists get involved and everything like that. Universal background checks, like, not incredibly, I don't even know that those are necessarily incredibly liberal philosophies. Like, they're just common sense philosophies. When you start talking about things like taking away certain types of weapons, like, is that really going to have an impact? Is that really going to be helpful with our culture? No. Like, so right now is not the time to play for those. You play for some of the other low-hanging fruits that enjoy widespread support. Things like $15 an hour minimum wage enjoys widespread support. I would say start to target those policies that blue candidates actually won on when they ran towards them. There's a good start. Mags the NFL Nerve. Who do you think will win Comeback Player of the Year? It sure seems like it's going to be Alex Smith. Like, that's pretty much been christened in the stars by the media, hasn't it already? Blaze in 1978. Do you think you might return to making history videos like you made a top 5 player of each team? Did you lose interest, lack of ideas, or just lack of time? Probably more the lack of time as much as anything else. I could certainly come back and do one of those again. And I could probably do it and expand it to other sports such as basketball and such as baseball. I could do that for NBA and MLB as well. And maybe for the NFL, like, you have enough teams now. It's been a few years have passed. Maybe I could do a top 10 players. Although still for some teams like the Texans, you really want to get in the top 10 players. Something I would certainly think about in 2021, yes. BPeth00. Should the Raiders fire Gruden if they fail to make the playoffs again this year, especially considering it would be the second year in a row they started strong but collapsed at the end? What's he in? Is he in year 3 of his 10-year deal? Like, they're kind of in a point where Mark Davis can't afford to fire Gruden with that many years and that much money left on the contract. And I want to be clear on this. They've done a half-ass rebuild. Not that some of the moves they've made have been bad. Some of them have been quite good. But at the end of the day, they're doing this all around Derek Carr. So you were only going to get so far. Not to mention some of the other misses that they've had. So, no, I don't think they should fire Gruden, in large part because I just don't see how that's financially tenable for the organization. Dakota Harbor 278. Why don't you watch UFC? Did Ronda crossing over give you any interest into watching UFC? No, I tried it like 9 years ago or so. Watched a couple of pay-per-views. And I was like, you know what? This really isn't my jam. So, just never got into watching it, really. And frankly, like, there's only so much time in a week. There's only so much time in a month, so much time in a year. There's only so many things that I can watch. And it just, that's not one that ever really interested me. Sean Pratt, 23. Are the Bears in the worst position of all teams? No quarterback, no offense, no cap space, and no draft pick capital. They got to invest in heavy in the offense. And by the time they do that, the defense will be faded. Well, already kind of faded. Can I also get a Cade McSuckass? Cade McSuckass. Hope you enjoyed it. The Bears are certainly in one of the worst positions in the league. They absolutely are. No quarterback, no plethora of draft pick capital, minimal cap space, questions abound in terms of front office, head coach. Yeah, that's a bad situation. It's a really bad situation. And I might argue one of the worst situations in the league. I don't know if I quite say it's the worst, but it's one of the worst, yes. John 0940 8568. Do you think Calvin Johnson would have had a ring if he demanded a channel or trade? Love your channel, by the way. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Yeah, probably. But if that wasn't like the ultimate motivation for him and he felt a sense of loyalty to Detroit, I'm not going to knock him for that. Actually, kind of respect a guy that played his entire career with one team. K underscore Nokaj. Should I be excited or concerned that the Giants have turned their season around? Do you think the winner of the NFC East can win a playoff game? Well, if I'm not mistaken, the last two teams that I can recall, or the two teams that I can recall that had a losing record but won their division was the 2010 Seahawks and 2014 Carolina Panthers. And didn't both of them win a playoff game? So I certainly think there is absolutely a chance that a four-seeded NFC East champion with a home game could win in the playoffs at least once. Excited or concerned that the Giants have turned their season around? I mean, you're not even at 500. So is it really turning the season around? How much have you really seen out of Daniel Jones? Like, honestly, you're kind of here, I think, if you're a Giants fan. You really are. Mike Schmidt. If Doug Peterson were to be fired, who do you think would make a great replacement in Philadelphia? I don't know who would make a great replacement in Philadelphia, and I'm not sure why the Eagles, a couple of years after a Super Bowl, would be looking to fire Doug Peterson. Seems a bit extreme to me. Groovy Woody. Who has the most disappointing teams in each conference this season? Most disappointing teams in each conference this season. I think the Ravens have certainly been a disappointment. That was a team with the top record in the AFC last year that you were expecting some of the moves they made in the offseason. They'd be right back in the mix, and they're struggling to make it into the playoffs. So I think they're a disappointment. I think the 49ers are a bit of a disappointment, although I had no thought of them being a playoff team. I'm sure many others did because they thought, the structure of that team was very sound and, they just made it to the Super Bowl the year before, but they weren't. I would also definitely say the Dallas Cowboys because you're bringing in a former Super Bowl champion coach and Mike McCarthy. You've got Dak. You've got Zeke. You've got weapons on offense, and now you've added a CeeDee Lamb. Like, you're thinking this has got to be a double-digit win team, and they're 4-9 now at the time of this recording. So they got to be at the top of the list. Kyle Gardner, 92. Ask, hey, Jeff, hope you're doing well. Thank you. I'm, like I said, kind of in the middle. Could be worse, could be better. Going into the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals, ooh, good question. How big of a threat did you see the Pacers to the Bulls, and what did you think of the battle between Jordan and Miller? I remember before that season started, the series started, honestly, I thought that Joker was going 7. I was hoping the Bulls were going to find a way to win one game at Market Square Arena, but I did not have a ton of confidence. I had confidence that when all came to pass that they would find a way to win in Game 7 and they would win that series. And if they won that series, they were going to beat Utah. They own Utah in the finals. They did it the year before. They'd do it again. But the Pacers, like their physicality and their size in the front court, their ability to shoot the three, their kind of scrappy, tough play and behavior, with a stoic, steady coach of the year in Larry Bird at the helm, yeah, they worried me. Let's not kid ourselves here. Like, once the Bulls got past the Pistons in 91, there are two teams that ever really worried me when it came to the Bulls of the 90s. It was the Knicks in 93, and it was the 98 Pacers. Those two teams worried me. But, looking back on that, those are such glorious times. Like, such a close competitive series, and so many of the games really hung in the balance until the end, and some big notable moments and plays like Reggie Miller's push-off in Game 4, Jordan's tumble driving to the hole on Derek McKee at the end of Game 6. Like, I look back at that series even more than the 98 finals with such a feeling of wonderful nostalgia. I really do. Great question. Michael007 fan. Do you think the Bears should re-sign kicker Cairo Santos to a long-term contract after they fire Phillips, Pace, and Nagy? Well, you're kind of jumping the gun here a little bit. We're hoping they fire Phillips, Pace, and Nagy, but we can't guarantee that any of them are going to be fired, let alone all of them. But let's humor you for a second and say that they are. Let the new regime make that determination. Nsipel99, as a Bears fan, what is the most heartbreaking playoff loss you've ever seen? Is it 2001, 2005, 2006, 2010, or 2018? The easy answer would be 2006, Super Bowl 41, because it was a Super Bowl. But I knew they were never going to beat the Colts that year because they had Rex Grossman as their quarterback. I had been spending the whole year talking about, just wait, it'll happen, and all of you will be devastated. So I had spent an entire year preparing myself for that. I think 2010 and losing the NFC Championship to Green Bay in Soldier Field arguably is more heartbreaking. Because that was the moment that I was 1,000% officially done with Jay Cutler. That was when I realized that it's going to be bad for a long time to come. That's the heartbreaking one, even more than the double doink in the wild card run against Philly a couple years ago. Yeah, it has to be that NFC Championship game loss. Because like I said, I thought they could win that game. 2006, I knew they had no chance against the Colts. And I knew Sexy Rexy would flare up on the game's biggest stage. Volpe Tom 7. Any thoughts on the Steve Cohen ownership of the New York Mets? Not really. I haven't given baseball much of a thought, honestly. The man THAMANAYNAYEXP1. I probably could say it, but I'm feeling really dumb right now, so I'm just going to spell it. That's what happens when you have a Twitter handle like this. What are the top 3 books that changed your life? That is actually a really good question. And as I think about it, as I get ready next year to turn 40, I start to think about the things I've done well and many, 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 many things that I've made mistakes on or I haven't done well or need to do better on. One of the things I could think of is that I haven't read a lot of books over the years, especially as an adult. And even as a kid, like I used to skim through crap and I would look through sources online, like in high school, like trying to get out of actually reading the whole book. It's been a really bad pattern and habit of mine is to not read books and not do it on a consistent basis. And when you look at so many of the most successful people in the world, what are some of the common things that they do? One common thing you hear a lot of them talk about is that they read. They read all the time. They continue to learn and continue to absorb information. So it's actually something I'm going to focus on a lot in 2021 is reading and reading more. So I wish I could say that there were 3 books that really changed my life, but there just hasn't been. And that's not my fault. Dirty J-Bands 4517. If Allen Robinson leaves, should the Bears consider drafting a wide receiver in round 1? You know, I also have to start preparing myself for the possibility that this team's not even going to take a quarterback in round 1 next year, no matter where they fall in the draft, no matter what their record ends up being. To me, the preference would be offensive line. Like, let's take quarterback out of the equation for a second. It has to be offensive line. Yeah, I would love to see them get some more speed in the receiving core, yes, but offensive line has to be the number 1 priority. Rick Stiles, 1985, if you were the commissioner of the MLS, what would you do to make American soccer at least the 4th most popular sport in the country? I start trying to get some of these rich owners from other sports to try and buy into my league, and then I'm trying to buy talent. Like, do the American European thing, and that's steal from other countries with our power and our money and our resources. Like, you're talking about you're going swinging for Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. Like, you have to get serious. And you could say, well, that would never happen. You throw enough money at anybody and you go to somebody like a Messi or a Cristiano Ronaldo and you say that we're going to build this entire thing around you. Like, yeah, you're a star here, but you could come to America and still have an international platform, but you can literally be the building block and the face of a league. Like, you might say, well, one of them might not go for it, but the other one might. The point I'm getting at is you go buy the best talent in the world and you give them excuses and reasons. That includes ownership shares. Like, anything fucking goes. You got to bring them here. That's it. That's simple. Dylan Schwartz. What happened to Carson Wentz after he was on pace to be MVP a few years ago? I think he lost some confidence with the injury battles that he had. Also, the surrounding cast around him took a downturn significantly. His offensive line is not as good. His receiving core is not as good. The running game is not as good. So, like, it's a myriad and variety of factors, which is also leading to Carson Wentz making some really, really bad decisions, which made Doug Peterson make, actually, I think, the right decision, which was to bench him right now for Jalen Hurts. You Michigan Wolverine 1. Can an NFL team please hire Jim Harbaugh? Had enough of old Jimsies, have you? Who knows? You may get your wish. Illogical reason 1. Another question. When there were trade rumors around Michael Jordan, how seriously did you take them? And if you took them very seriously, how concerned were you? I never took any trade rumors around Michael Jordan very seriously. I took trade rumors around Scottie Pippen incredibly seriously because I knew that fat-ass penguin would do something that dumb and ridiculous, like trading away a Hall of Famer in the peak of his prime of his career like Scottie Pippen for peanuts, which is ultimately eventually what he did. Any rumors or any talk or any thought that was ever put out there in any way, shape, or form about Michael Jordan and trade rumors, which I don't even really remember, honestly. Like, I really don't remember. I absolutely, totally remember the numerous trade rumors around Scottie Pippen and how much that terrified me. James Isabel 20. What's your honest opinion about all this James Harden trade nonsense? Faced with tears of joy. And where do you think he will end up with his ringless ass? Also, can you not put the Jeff Jakes on the Steelers anymore? Is the Jakes really that bad, guys? I'm going to end up being like a hired hitman where you come to me and I have to start taking money from you in order for it to go to the highest bidder so I can put the jinx on somebody. Like, I might as well make some profit out of it at some point. James Harden, like for now, seems like he's going to be in Houston, doesn't it? Where does he end up? Maybe he ends up in Miami. Maybe he ends up in Brooklyn. I don't really know. His ringless ass. That's the way he's going to stay, too. PFF_rain. Regarding the canceled joint military China-Canada winter training exercise, do you think the Trump administration made the correct move in requesting Canada to cancel that training in Canada, or should we have minded our own damn business? Yeah, and this is not just me picking on Trump. There's so many other reasons I can pick on Trump and knock Trump. This one is just like a standard, like, U.S. foreign policy. Like, can we just get the hell out of people's business and leave them the hell alone? If it does not directly concern us, can we butt the hell out? Right? Right? We got enough problems to deal with. We got enough crap going on in our own house. Like, let's fix some of that crap. So no, frankly, when it comes to Canada or China, we need to learn better how to shut our mouths and stay the hell out of other people's business. Hey, it's me, Tetris, is going to close us off by asking, what college football coaches do you think would make a good head coach for the Chicago Bears? It won't be Jim Harbaugh, because you know where he should stay? Michigan. I wonder if Ohio State boosters would rally together to pay the remainder of Jim Harbaugh's salary to ensure that he stays in Ann Arbor for several years to come. It's really hard to know with college football coaches and how they would project. I could see somebody like a Matt Campbell from Iowa State potentially being a good fit in Chicago. I think Pat Fitzgerald would be a really dumb decision and a very poor fit. David Shaw from Stanford, you know, he's a guy that I thought someday was going to be an NFL head coach. I think he would potentially be a good fit in Chicago. I could say I would certainly have a ton of interest in Lincoln Riley just because of the work he's been able to do over the years at the quarterback position. Like, this is a guy that gets the best out of quarterbacks. See Baker Mayfield, see Kyler Murray, see Jalen Hurts. Like, you know, I'm watching games this week, and the last three quarterbacks that he's had starting for him have all been drafted. Two of them number 1 overall, the other one in round 2, and all 3 of them are starting on Sunday. You know, this Sunday. So I would be incredibly intrigued with and interested in him because he has a track record and a pedigree for producing successful prospects at the quarterback position and just getting the most out of his offenses. So, and a young guy, too, at that. So those are a few guys that I could think of. Always a crapshoot when you talk about these college guys. So anyways, that's it for this weekly Q&A video. Thanks again to all of you that submitted your questions. Smash that subscribe button and keep checking back all week. Got lots of great content still to come.